Good afternoon, Juan. Thanks for coming back on. How you doing?
Doing good, doing good. Hoping for some Christmas holiday.
Hoping for some Christmas holidays. I'm hoping for Christmas presents. I've made demands everywhere of my wife and kids. Anyway, back to the subject. Speaking of Christmas, Brexit. Lots of activity in the news, and obviously this is something we should clarify for the benefit of all clients. So talk to me about Brexit, all implications thereof, and what our clients need to know as regards Brexit and their relationship with Darwinex, be they inside the EU or outside the EU post-Brexit.
So I'll have to structure this answer from several facets. What I'll try and do is educate our customers so when they get thrown all these news that I'm sure are going to come up in the umpteenth Brexit frenzy as we approach the holidays.
Yes, usually very stressful sounding news.
Yeah, very stressful sounding news, and of course they're going to be, depends on which side of the coin you are. So there will be people who would like to minimize it, there will be people who would like to kind of maximize it, and I think what matters is that people understand what the actual implications will be, and what the knowns are, and potentially some of the known unknowns. Okay. Before we really go into that, I just want to stress that we had to plan for this Brexit scenario, this hard Brexit scenario, and our plan was to get an EU license. We expect our EU license to go live very early in 2021. We are finalizing a lot of groundwork that has had to be done from our compliance side of things, from the onboarding side of things, to make sure that we comply with no matter what scenario. So the first point I want to bring across is that whatever implications a hard Brexit might have, we don't really care, because we're going to be EU regulated. We will have a Spanish license.
Okay, so for context, is Darwinex adding to its licensing then? Up until now, it's just been FCA.
That's correct. So we have up to now operated with an FCA license. We never saw the need to have more than one license. Unfortunately, regulators have given us the reason to have more than one license.
Sure.
And yes, it's going to cost some time and some money, but that's about the size of the damage. So I wanted to say that up front so that people understand, okay, well, if I am an EU customer, then I will have two ways to trade with one and the same concept, because that's the other point is, regardless of what happens, we will offer, to the extent possible, and certainly in this case it will be possible, the exact same trading conditions, customer support, product features, and so on and so forth. Okay, so again, whether you end up trading with our EU entity or with our FCA entity, this will not have impact beyond the fact that the terms and conditions that you sign will be adjusted to national, to European law in one case and to FCA law in the other one. And we don't expect any major divergences in plain vanilla services like the ones we offer.
Okay, great. So this is a good place to crystallize this with some examples from clients' perspectives, both say non-EU and EU. So let's start with the non-EU. Say I'm a British client. In very few words, how am I impacted by Brexit, regardless of what direction it goes, as a Darwinex client sitting outside the EU?
You don't care.
Okay, great. Simple answer, straightforward.
So basically, if you're from the non-EU, whatever relationship you had with Darwinex remains unaffected.
And in terms of my funds that are held with Darwinex in the UK entity at this point in time, they stay there post-Brexit?
They will continue with Santander and Natwest and our prime brokers.
Brilliant. And for the EU client's case?
Okay, this is where we start to have more questions, okay?
So it sounds to me it's pretty straightforward for British clients or non-EU clients.
For non-EU clients, including British clients now. Now, when it comes to EU customers, we have to draw a distinction between existing customers and future customers.
Okay.
Now, before I even go into that distinction, we have to take a step back and look at what Brexit means from the standpoint of an institution like Darwinex.
Mhm.
That's one side of the story.
Yeah.
The other side of the story is from the standpoint of the consumer.
Okay.
Now, as a consumer, you always have had and always will have the right to contract with brokers in third-party jurisdictions like Australia or Canada or the US, if you so please. No one in the EU is going to explicitly forbid that you open an account with a Canadian broker if you so fancy.
Understood.
Okay, so let's just draw the analogy. Just as if you wanted to open an account with a US broker, you had that right up until now.
Mhm.
You will continue to have that right with an FCA broker.
Okay.
In other words, your consumer rights, as long as we meet KYC, anti-money laundering, and any other jurisdiction, like any other regulations, are not really affected by this.
Right. And for clarity, we're speaking still about non-EU or EU clientele here.
No, we're talking about any clients. This is like
Any
a philosophical thing.
Oh, right. Understood. Okay. I'm clear now. Yeah.
If you're a German client and you're looking at this, again, to preempt, we will have an EU license. This is just a theoretical point, which does have implications. As a consumer, you have the right to place your money where you want, as long as you don't breach any regulations. And you don't breach any regulations by contracting with an US entity. Equally, same thing for a UK entity. Okay?
Okay.
Now, what does change with Brexit is the right of an institution like us to offer financial services for clients that are in the EU. For that, we have to have certain permissions. So one thing is if we go out to the client, in which case we need a permission, and the other case if the client comes out to us, in which case it's the client. Okay, so that's the point we're trying to assert here.
Okay, understood.
Now, what Brexit will mean is that, and of course we don't know, and it's the 16th of December at this point, we still don't know what the ultimate shape of the agreement or non-agreement will be.
Sure.
But it looks as though we will lose the so-called passporting rights, which will mean we will lose the right to proactively engage EU customers with our FCA license.
Okay.
Of course, we'll have an EU license to approach them directly, but that's another story, because I'm just trying to kind of explain from an educational standpoint. So
sure, understood.
That being the case, we will not be able to run marketing campaigns. We will not be able to run things unless we do this with our EU entity. Now, we've never really done that. So again, any customer coming through word of mouth is just very equally free to contract with us. Why am I saying this? The reason I'm saying this, and to come back to your question as to what EU clients can do, is if we have approached them, then we will be forced to engage with them on our EU terms. In other words, if we do marketing in Germany, then whatever customers we acquire through that marketing in Germany by that will be bound by us having marketed, and therefore they will have to sign with our Spanish entity.
Understood.
If a German client approaches us of his own right, then he will still have the right, and we will try to offer that right to him, to contract with either of our entities. If he chooses to have our money with a Spanish entity, he will have the right to do so. If he chooses to do that with the FCA entity, again, he will have the right to do so, because if he has the right to do that with a US entity, it's not like we're going to sink the UK in the North Channel.
Sure. Okay, so that's really the key, and the term here is reverse solicitation. So reverse solicitation is a client coming to us. So under reverse solicitation, the client has the right to contract with a third country, and therefore the UK. If however, the financial counterparty has engaged in a financial promotion to engage the customer, then that will only be possible with passporting rights, which will have to go on through our Spanish entity. Okay. So basically, I have answered for future EU residents, and that leaves us with the question of what happens with existing EU residents that already have accounts with us. Now, we think that the fairest outcome for customers
and that's the way we would like our money treated, is that we respect their wishes. So if they wish to take their monies back, they always have been able to take their monies back. If they don't, then we will be happy to continue to treat them the ways we always have, because we had the right to engage them under our previous permissions. Now we are looking at a transitional solution for all those clients that want to transfer from our FCA entity to our EU entity, and we'll facilitate that. But the operational and logistical details of that are non-trivial, so we're still really looking at what's the best way to make that happen. We will come back very early in 2021 to tell customers that if they wish to exercise that right, they will be able to do that. And that applies, for instance, to use cases like, I am a, say, French Darwin provider, and I prefer to trade with your EU entity. What happens with my Darwin's track record?
Valid question, yes.
Okay.
True.
So these are questions that we have always known. These were known unknowns that will actually take quite a bit of time for us to fix, because they will have development implications. We had honestly hoped that it wouldn't get to this with Brexit, but it seems as though 16th of December, and again, we don't know, because right, if it really looked like we weren't going to have a deal, I would have expected our dear politicians to have already said, "Hey, look, guys,
true.
it's not gonna happen. So there's no point waiting until 31st of December." So I still retain a glimmer of hope that some reason will prevail, and that whilst obviously the UK will exit the financial market, it will do so with some sort of continuous approach, whereby any divergence will only happen gradually, and people are not going to have their monies thrown out on the first of
a transition period,
because regulators because politicians just couldn't get to agree. So to recap, non-EU customers not affected, EU customers not affected unless regulators start saying things which they shouldn't say. And again, this comes back to the clash of personal rights when a regulator says that you cannot have your monies in the UK. It's like, well, if I can have my monies in Australia or in the US, who are you to tell me that I can't have my monies in the United Kingdom? If
I see the problem. Yes.
Well, please.
That's sure.
It's really a question of personal rights against commercial rights. It's clear that we will not have the right to market from our FCA entity onto EU customers. We have never done that, and or if we have done it in a minimal fashion. And whatever we have done, which is, as you know, our retargeting campaigns, we have already stopped long ago. So I'm not sure I've made that clear. I mean, I've really tried to explain why I've provided a certain answer, but that's the status quo as of this point. Now, we expect our EU license to go live very, very shortly after the new year.
And just for clarity, the EU license is with what regulator?
So it will be a license with the Spanish regulator, which will carry passporting rights to the rest of the European Union, the same way as the UK license.
This is the CNMV.
This is the Comisión Nacional del Mercado de Valores. And the other bit we're looking into is banking connections, because funnily enough, neither the FCA nor the Spanish regulator require client funds to be held with either a UK or a Spanish bank. So what we're looking at is opening up bank accounts in the different countries so that, for instance, a French customer can trade with us under Spanish law, but his funds would be held with Santander, say, Paris.
Right.
And this is something I can't promise timelines right now, because this space is moving quite a bit at the moment. But it's something we're really looking into.
Okay, great. So I think the conversation summarizes everything to do with EU existing as well as new, and non-EU existing as well as new. Have we shed light on new non-EU clients? They are not affected.
They're not affected. So anything which is outside the EU, this is all a very, very interesting Muppet show. It's a way that Europeans choose to waste their time.
So what we're going to do for people who've been following the conversation is everything that's been discussed here will also be part of the description text that you see for the podcast, as well as if you're listening to this on YouTube, then you'll see the contents in the description of the video. We also have a complimentary blog post that we'll reference therein. So if there's any issues to do with clarity after having heard this conversation, you can always refer to that documentation. Other than that,
if you have any questions, we'll do our best to answer as we go. I wished I could provide more clarity. Unfortunately, we're all in a bit of a position where we've been thrown under a bus in some ways. So we're doing the best we can.
Okay, great. No, I think this addresses the subject, given that we're around the corner from Brexit and all the news media flying around the way it is. It's good timing to let people know that there isn't as much cause for alarm as one would think.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, politicians, they're not going to sink the island in the North Channel.
Sure. Yeah.
That's beyond their powers.
True. And from clients' perspectives, it's good that we are offering this clarity so that if there are any concerns to do with jurisdictions or financial issues thereof, they can have these clarified through these types of conversations and blog media that we'll post. So thank you for your time. Take care. Have a nice rest of your day.